Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for a brand new strand on this channel. Although don't get me wrong, I'm well aware that this idea of where are they now type video isn't particularly novel, but I've decided to add an extra spin to proceedings for this particular video. But I haven't put it in the title of this video, so you don't know what that spin is yet. The European Cup was a concept conceived in 1954 by L'Equipe writer Gabriel Ano, who, after seeing the press proclaiming Wolves as the champions of Europe after they defeated the mighty Honved of Hungary 3-2 in a friendly, proposed the idea of a transcontinental tournament containing all of Europe's best teams. 65 years on, and it is the pinnacle of the club game in Europe, going from strength to strength every year and watched all around the world by millions of people. Every tournament must start from humble beginnings though, and the first competition of the European Cup, which took place in the 1955-56 season, consisted of just 16 teams and only had knockout matches, and all of the teams who took part were selected by L'Equipe themselves as representatives of who they thought were the best teams in Europe at the time. Although Chelsea, who would receive the invitation from L'Equipe, were actually barred from taking part by the English FA as they thought it would distract the Blues from their domestic competitions, and 4 more would also reject the call. I decided to bring together those teams who actually did enter the 1955-56 competition, as well as those when the competition was rebranded in 1992 as the Champions League, and find out where those teams are today. However, the spin on proceedings that I inferred earlier is that I will also add in the extra stat of what their best ever finish in either the European Cup or Champions League has been to create a little bit of variety. I may also expand this out to cover the Europa League, the UEFA Cup and potentially the European Cup Winners' Cup because I'm interested as much as anything. But for now, here is every original European Cup and Champions League team, where are they now, as well as their best finish in Europe. Servette, Swiss Super League. Servette were the only club never to have been relegated from the Swiss top flight until 2013, when they fell into the second tier for the first time in their history, although they returned in 2019, finishing 4th last season. However, in 1955, they had been leagueless for 5 seasons and had just finished 6th in the competition, so how on earth they blagged their way in is anyone's guess. They were knocked out in the first round by the team who was coming up next, and they haven't gone much further since, with their best finishes to date being multiple round of 16 exits, including in 1979-1980 and in 1985-86, which was the last time they entered the European Cup proper. Real Madrid, La Liga. I think the answer to both of my questions when it comes to Real Madrid is pretty obvious, as Los Blancos are not only the most successful team in Spain in terms of league titles won and the current reigning champions, but also the most successful team in European history with 13 Champions League or European Cup titles to their name. The first came in this very competition, kick-starting a run of 5 consecutive titles, a run which has yet to be equalled, and their latest came in 2018. Sporting Lisbon, Liga NOS. One of Portugal's big 3 alongside Benfica and Porto, Sporting have won 18 league titles in their history, but they haven't made any kind of impression in Europe's premier competition, and certainly not in this edition, as they were knocked out 8-5 on aggregates in the first round. Ever since, their best pre-1992 finish was a quarter-final appearance in 1983, when they lost to Real Sociedad, and since the dawn of the Champions League, they've only reached the knockout stages once, when they were hammered 12-1 by Bayern Munich in the second round. However, they have never been relegated from the Liga NOS, or Primera Liga if you want to remove its sponsorship, and they came 4th last season. Partizan Belgrade, Serbian Super League. One of the 2 powerhouses of the Serbian game alongside their neighbours and fierce rivals, Red Star, Partizan would be knocked out by Real Madrid in the quarters of this particular edition, and it would be the same club who would beat them in the 1966 final, meaning the wait for an Eastern European side to win the Champions League would go on, and it would extend out until 1986. That runners-up position remains Red Star's best finish in the Champions League to date, and they haven't even made it to the group stages of the Champions League since 2011, although they do continue to dominate Serbian football, winning 8 Serbian Super League titles since 2006 and finishing 2nd in 2020. Rapid Vienna, Österreichische Bundesliga. The team who were Arsenal's first opponents in the Europa League this season, Rapid Vienna came 2nd in the delayed 2019-20 Österreichische Bundesliga, proving to be Salzburg's closest challengers in recent times. Statistically the most successful Austrian side of all time, with 32 league titles as well as a German league title in 1941, their best run in the European Cup came in 1961, when they made it to the semi-finals before falling at the hands of Benfica, who would go on to win the competition that year. A victim of the growing discrepancy within the world game as a result of the growing financial clout of the big clubs, Rapid haven't taken part in the Champions League proper since 2006, and although they came close this year, they lost in the third qualifying round to Ghent. PSV, Eredivisie. PSV were one of 4 teams who weren't actually meant to take part in this particular tournament, but Holland Sport, the 1955 Dutch league winners who now find themselves in the Tweede Divisie, which is Holland's third tier, refused to take part, so PSV took their place. Although after a 6-1 trouncing by Rapid in their first game, they must have wondered why they even bothered. They would be, alongside Servette and 2 other teams who will feature later, the only sides up until 1997 to take part in either the European Cup or the Champions League without having won their domestic league or the European Cup the season prior. Only the second team in this video thus far to have won the trophy itself, lifting it in 1988 as part of a historic treble. They finished 4th in the Eredivisie last season before it was voided as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, which, by their standards, is quite lackluster. AC Milan, Serie A. The current Serie A table toppers, AC Milan have been a fallen giant in recent times as a result of some poor backroom management and on-field recruitment, but make no mistake about it, they are historically European powerhouses. Semi-finalists in the first competition, losing out to Real, AC Milan have won the trophy 7 times to date, with the most recent coming in 2007, as Filippo Inzaghi righted the wrongs of Istanbul 2 years earlier with a brace against Liverpool to bring old big ears back to Milan. Saarbrücken, Dritte Liga. The first team in this video not to be playing in their respective top flight, Saarbrücken were Saarland's representatives, and it would be the only time that a team from the region would take part in a UEFA affiliated competition, as it was unified into West Germany 2 years later. In turn, this would be Saarbrücken's only appearance in European competition, as despite winning the first leg away at Milan, they lost 4-1 in the second leg and were promptly eliminated. After many financial difficulties, they now find themselves in the Dritte Liga, although they reached the semi-finals of the German Cup last season, as well as being promoted from the 4th tier. AGF Aarhus, Danish Superliga. Despite winning the Danish Superliga in 1955, Aarhus weren't actually invited by the Keep to take part in the inaugural competition, as it was RB, who finished 2nd, who were asked instead, but they refused, so Aarhus, who finished 3rd in the Superliga last season, filled the gap, although they ended up losing to the eventual finalists in the first round. Like Rapid Vienna in many respects, their best run in the European Cup came in 1961 when they reached the quarters, and also like Rapid, they would lose against Benfica. Stade de Reims, Ligue 1. It might be hard to believe nowadays, but Reims were a real force in the French game during the 1950s, and it wasn't a surprise to see them go all the way to the final with a squad which included future Real Madrid star Raymond Kopa, as well as the bulk of the French national side at the time. They would repeat the trick again in 1959, losing to the same opponents as in 1956, those being obviously Real Madrid, but they've only featured twice more in the European Cup since, in 1960-61 and 1962-63. Indeed, after finishing 6th last season, they took part in their first European campaign of any kind since that 1962-63 season, although they would end up losing in the third qualifying round to Hungarian side Fehérvár. Vöröslabogo, OTP Bankliga. Now known as MTK Budapest, Vöröslabogo are another side who took part in the season's competition despite not winning the domestic league the season before, as Honved, one of the 2 sides who provided the inspiration for the tournament in the first place, refused to take part. Unlike PSV and Aarhus, Labogo actually made it past the first round, although they would end up losing to Reims in the quarters, which is their best showing in the European Cup or Champions League to date. The club won promotion back to Hungary's top flight in 2019 after a season away. Anderlecht, Belgian Pro League. The titans of Belgian football, Anderlecht couldn't transfer this onto the European stage, as they would fall to Labogo in the first round, 10-4 on aggregate. They would, however, reach the semi-finals in both 1982 and 1986, losing to the prospective winners in Aston Villa and Steaua Bucharest in each respective tournament, although they haven't been in the group stages of the Champions League since 2015. Currently undergoing a transitional phase under new manager Vincent Kompany, the club finished 8th in the Belgian Pro League last season, their lowest finish since 1938. Djurgården, Allsvenskan. Djurgården presided over the only goalless draw in the entirety of the tournament against the team who was coming up next, although they would beat them 4-1 anyway to progress to the next round. That would end up being the extent of their European Cup campaign for that season, and they haven't been able to beat that record since. However, they are the reigning champions of the Allsvenskan, earning the qualification to the Champions League for this season, although they would end up losing in the first round to Ferencváros, and it doesn't look like that they'll be able to retain their title either, as they currently sit 8 points behind Malmö with just 6 games left to play. Kradia Warsaw, no idea.
I can explain.
Undoubtedly the biggest fall from grace in this entire video, Crvena Warsaw would play in the European Cup twice, once in 1956 and 1959, but they were knocked out in the first round on both counts. Since 1983, when they played their last season in what is now known as the Ekstraklasa, they have been on a steady yet simultaneously rapid decline, not tasting promotion once until 2011, by which point they were in the 7th tier. By 2015, they found themselves in the Klasa B, which is the 8th tier of Polish football, and as of 2018-19, they didn't even get access into that league, so their current situation, to me at least, is unknown. I really did try to find out where they actually are, and it did take me a while, but I genuinely couldn't find any evidence of them playing matches, nor any indication that they've actually gone bust, so I really do have absolutely no idea on this one. I can only apologise profusely. Rot-Weiss Essen, Regionalliga West. The quality does pick up with Rot-Weiss Essen, although it was almost impossible for it not to, and even then, there still isn't a massive jump in quality anyway. Rot-Weiss Essen, which, literally translated, means red-white food, won their only German title in 1955, but their European adventure would be short-lived, falling to the team up next in the first round, in what would be their only European Cup campaign. Their last season in the Bundesliga came in 1977, when they were relegated after conceding a staggering 103 goals, and nowadays they plied their trade in the Regionalliga West, the 4th tier of the German football pyramid, finishing 3rd in the truncated 2019-20 campaign. Hibernian, Scottish Premiership. The final team in this tournament, as well as the 3rd non-domestic champion to feature, as Aberdeen won the title, but they, like the English FA, thought it would prove too much of a distraction from the domestic game. Hibernian jumped at the chance to take their place, even though they finished 5th the season before, and boy did they take it well. They would reach the semi-finals, losing to eventual finalist Reims, but it remains the only time that the Edinburgh outfit have ever graced Europe's main continental competition, and last season they finished 7th in the Premiership. So that's your lot for the fates of every single team who took part in that inaugural competition in 1955-56, but I also thought I'd extend this video out to feature the first Champions League campaign, which took place in 1992-93 as well, since there were only 8 teams who took part in the group stages when it was considered that the tournament had officially begun. 2 of those teams, those being AC Milan and PSV, also took part in that 1955-56 European Cup, so there's no need to profile them again here, but the other 6 were all pioneers of a competition whose 29th edition began just last week. Marseille, Ligue 1. The 1992-93 campaign was a season of controversy in the south of France, as it emerged that Marseille had engaged in match fixing in their domestic league to help them win their 5th straight title, which was later stripped from them. However, it didn't affect their participation in Europe that season, since the match fixing didn't take place on the European stage, and they remain the only French side to have ever won the European Cup or the Champions League, which occurred in this season after they topped their group to qualify for the final, where they beat Milan 1-0. They finished 2nd on a points per game basis in Ligue 1 last season behind PSG, qualifying for the Champions League for the first time since 2013. Rangers, Scottish Premiership. Even though this will be controversial to Celtic fans, I don't think the Rangers have solely existed since 2012, and I'm including their entire history for the purposes of this video. Rangers are the most successful team in Scottish history with 54 league titles to their name, although Celtic are catching up after 9 straight titles took them to 51. But they flew for the flag for Scotland at this particular tournament, only missing out in the final by 1 point behind Marseille. Their best European run was to the semi-finals in 1960, when they lost 12-1 on aggregate to Eintracht Frankfurt, which must have hurt. And they currently sit atop the Scottish Premiership, aiming to prevent Celtic from doing what no Scottish club has done before, in winning 10 consecutive league titles. Club Brugge, Belgian Pro League. 3rd place in Group A for this tournament, Club Brugge are the only Belgian side to have ever played in a European Cup final, although they would end up losing to Liverpool in 1978 by a 1-goal margin. However, since the Champions League's inception in 1992, they've taken part in the group stages 7 times and never made it out, with their 8th attempt to buck that trend taking place right now after being awarded the Belgian League title as a result of the season's cancellation last season. In a group containing Lazio and Dortmund, and despite an opening day win over Zenit, I can't personally see it happening, although I'd be more than happy to be proven wrong. CSKA Moskva, Russian Premier League. In a fact which surprised me, CSKA Moskva only qualified for the European Cup once before 1992, when they reached the last 16 in 1972, so therefore they're one of the few sides in this video whose best European run has come in the Champions League era. The season in question was 2009-10 when they marched all the way to the quarter-finals before being eliminated by eventual champions Inter Milan, losing 1-0 in both legs. They are still regulars in the Russian Premier League, although they haven't won a league since 2016, and they finished 4th last time out, some 22 points behind champions Zenit. AFK Göteborg, Allsvenskan. A team who were semi-regulars at Europe's top table in the 80s to 90s, Göteborg came second in their group behind AC Milan, who won all of their games to book their place in the final. Göteborg made the semi-finals in 1986, although they lost to Barcelona on penalties, and they've only taken part in Champions League qualifying alone once since 1997. They finished 7th in the Allsvenskan last season, but they are in danger of being relegated this time around, currently sitting just 2 points ahead of the relegation playoff spot as of the time of this recording. Porto, Liga NOS. The final entrance in this gargantuan video, Porto's ever-present status in the Primeira Liga means that every single one of the Champions League's first ever sides still play in their country's top league, with Göteborg being the closest out of all of them to dropping down. Porto have won the European Cup once in 1987 and the Champions League once under the guidance of Jose Mourinho in 2004, and they are the reigning Portuguese league champions, earning themselves automatic qualification for this season's Champions League, where they gave Man City a real scare in their opening game before eventually losing 3-1. But that just about concludes today's video on every single team who played in the first European Cup campaign, as well as the first Champions League campaign, and where those teams are now, as well as their best performances in Europe. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you want me to look at any other international competitions or continental competitions, let me know which ones down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn that notification bell on so you get notified straight away whenever I upload a video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I will see you then.